Hello everyone, I'm Sara Raney and welcome. Today I will be discussing when pretrial bail rules go unenforced and how they affect us as victims. I know this may sound unimportant to you, but think about it a little bit. You think that the person who killed your child is in jail, but he's out roaming free. Now this is something that is very frightening in some respects, especially if you live in the same town. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm here is that in 2019, my world was shattered. My son, Kenley, who is my whole world, was taken from me by a drunk driver, speeding at an unimaginable speed of 136 miles per hour with a blood alcohol content more than twice the legal limit. But the pain didn't stop there. It was the beginning. What followed was bewildering, scary encounter with the justice system. I believed was on my side. But despite the clear rules set by the judge, the defendant, the very person responsible for my son's death, seemed to evade the grasp of accountability, and time again, he put his finger up at the justice system. I wholeheartedly, like I said before, believed in trusting the system all along. But I thought he was arrested and in jail. This is what I was led to believe. Now, I was suffering trauma. I was by myself. And I did, on many occasions, request that the DA send me emails giving me the information. But for some reason, they refused. Why? The only thing I can assume is the fact that they were misleading me. Because if you're telling the truth, you're willing to put something down in writing. But this did not happen. So I relied on what they were hinting or telling me. But he wasn't arrested until November 2019. 10 months later, he was roaming the street all that time. Driving, drinking, whatever he was doing. He was free to do whatever he wanted to do. But 10 months later, an $80,000 bail bond with clear rules and supervision was given by the judge. Again, I assumed the probation department would ensure compliance. But once again, the justice system fell victims. The defendant roamed free despite the court's orders, finding ways to evade his responsibility. Now, how could this happen? I don't know if it would have been me. I would have been afraid what the judge put down. But no, they don't care. They're so used to getting away with things. Now, who is responsible for ensuring that the defendant follows the judge's rules for pretrial release, which is what this was? What is the difference between a bail bond and a PR bond? Well, we're going to find out. And again, let me state, I am not an attorney. This is what I found out. Now, my official documents list the rules in detail, but who is responsible for ensuring that all rules are enforced? Someone did not do their jobs. Now, talk about confusion. Now, before I dive into this topic, I want to say why I feel it's so important. I simply could not understand how the man who killed my child was disappearing for months at a time when he was supposed to be monitored. He was supposed to have a SCRAM device. That's an SCRAM device, i.e. an ankle bracelet. To my knowledge, it had a GPS. He had to report and regulate to either a bondsman or the probation department. However, nowadays, you can track someone by GPS with little effort. So whose job was this? And why was it ignored for 6 months the first time and 3 months the second time on a PR bond? Here's what I found out. In the legal system, the responsibility for ensuring that the conditions ordered by a judge are enforced for both a personal reconnaissance bond, which is a PR bond, and a bail bond follows on different parties. In this case, I don't think either one did their jobs. For a bail bond, now, a bail bond agent or bail bondsman is the key to ensuring compliance with the court's conditions. When a bail bond is posted by a bondsman on behalf of the defendant, that is actually putting up money, the bondsman assumes the responsibility for ensuring that the defendant appears for all court dates and adheres to the conditions of the release. Now, the bail bond company has a financial interest in the defendant's compliance, as they stand to lose the bail amount if this defendant fails to meet the conditions of the releases. In addition to the court's conditions, the bail bond agent may implement their own measures to ensure the defendant follows the court's orders. Failure to comply can lead to the bail bond being revoked and the defendant being taken into custody, i.e. a bounty hunter will go after them. Like I said, the first bail bond was for $80,000 and it was issued and revoked for disappearing for 6 months. Now, why would anyone worry about following the rules when they get a better deal if they don't? Like in my case. He was rewarded with a PR bond. He did not have to continue to come up with the money. I understand there is a yearly fee of 10%. Of course, he was too poor to do so. But wait, the SCRAM device, if he didn't have money, the government would come up with money, or the state or the city, whomever it might be. If he didn't have an ID in his car or couldn't afford it, same thing. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Now, for a bail bond, where a bail bond agent pays to get the person released. Now, the bail bond agent wants to make sure the person follows the court rules and shows up for court. Now, if the person doesn't, the bail bondsman can lose the money they put up for bail. They might even hire a bounty hunter to find and return the person to court. This is what I have said before. Now, the court issues a PR warrant for the arrest, and I believe served by marshals and arrested. This is a difference. Now, for a PR bond is a bond which the defendant is released based on their promise to appear in court without having to pay bills. Now, bailiffs or probation officers are responsible for ensuring the defendant follows the rules. Whereas with a bail bond, again, that is with the bail bondsman. The bond was given to the man who murdered my son after he went missing on his $80,000 bail bond. Why would anyone follow the rules if they could get a better deal, such as a PR? Again, I just simply don't understand that. Now, for a PI bond where the person promises to come back to court without having to pay money. So, how does the bail bond process typically work? I know it's confusing, and I know I've gone over things a couple times. As I shared in my recent video, the saga of his two bonds, that is the guy that killed my son, his two bonds, that he was rewarded with leniency instead of punishment for not reporting to his probation officer and disappeared again, even when caught. Shockingly, the DA's office assumed he was following the rules, or just too busy to care, leaving one to believe that he was, or leading me to believe that he was following the rules. It is disheartening to realize that following probation rules was not a priority in court, or the outcome would have been different. The defendant did not fear the justice system. Otherwise, he would have he would have followed them. Wouldn't you? But then too, we're not killers. We're victims. We, the victims, would stress the justice system, but the criminals have learned that they can get away with not following through. I discussed his criminal record in a previous video. I wondered if ever cooperated with the many times he was out on bond. Now let me say again, I am not an attorney. I only know what I have researched and what happened to me. Now, his grandmother, who I understand is no longer with us, and other relatives put up the money for his first bond. And on March 5th, 2021, his grandmother sent a handwritten note to the DA's office stating that she did not know where her grandson was for 6 months and to take her off the bond. And yes, I have that note. Now, if I am not an attorney, where am I getting this information? I have a copy of that note, like I said, along with the information and documents I downloaded from the Victims Portal, State Department of Criminal Justice. Now, in my case, it was the TDCJ, which stands for Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Now, if it was in Nevada, it would be NDCJ, Nevada Department of Criminal Justice. In 2004, CVRA, which is the Federal Victims' Rights Act, states that a victim must be notified if a defendant is released on parole or bond. Nobody notified me. Now, I was fortunate. I live in another state. I didn't meet up with him in a bar, in a grocery store. I guess I would have met up with him in a bar because that's probably where he ended up with every night. Now, let me explain a little bit about this. And I know I've said this a couple of times before, but it's very important. Now, the state, which is Marcy's law, also states that the victims also must be notified. The reason why this came into effect was because Marcy had basically, I guess, had her boyfriend arrested, husband arrested, or something arrested. And she thought he was in jail. And they lived in a small town. I'm not sure about that. But she's in a grocery store one day, shopping, doing her own thing, and there he is. And he killed her. And this is where the State Act, Marcy's Law, came about. Now, it's passed in most states. I know just this past couple months was passed here in November, in 2024. But this happened in 1983. Now, tell me how long that takes. Now, if you want to check to see if your state has voted in this law. Go to www.marsyslaw.us/states, and you will find out all about it. Now, of course, the federal is the CVRA, Federal Rights Act. Now, everything I have experienced tells me that the victims are not respected in the justice system. Sorry, folks. And we are told that every day by the DA, that they represent the state and not us. And for what I found, nobody represents us. The criminal gets all the rights. Heck, he gets a lot of money even to pay for them. What do we get? A life sentence of grief. Now, I had a lot of problems with the DA that I had. He didn't care about the victim. He was narcissistic, and I truly believe that he didn't like women, especially women who are strong. But we meet them every day. But fortunately for me, an assistant DA managed to keep track of documents when she realized what was happening and was forced to participate on that infamous day, December 23rd, 2021, which I will explain when I can do so. It has affected me all these years. Now, I have worked all my life, and yes, have been overwhelmed. However, I could never use the excuse that I was overworked and could not do my job. For a probation officer to sit in court and say that she could not monitor the guy that killed my child because she had too many clients, and this did happen on December 23rd, is beyond me. So you see why I feel that our rights are just a joke to them. If they can follow them, they'll follow them. If they can't, they won't. But the criminal gets everything. Now, the drunk who killed my son on January 25th, 2019 was not arrested until November 2019. Dummy me, I thought he would be arrested that night and kept in jail. Who would have thought that if someone had a DUI and killed someone, would be allowed to be free to drive? This drunk was speeding at 136 miles per hour with a BAC of 2.0 and killed my son and Marshall, his dog. Now, my son did the right thing. He was tired that night. He pulled over into what he thought was a safe rest area to get some sleep. And this is what happened to him. 136 miles per hour to a stopped car. Imagine what was left of that car. Imagine what it did to my child. Poor little Marshall flew 500 feet and was killed. And this guy roamed free for 10 months. His license wasn't suspended. He could still drive. He could still go drink, for heaven's sakes. Because he, I don't think there was any rules of him to stop. And even if there was nobody there to stop him. And he was enabled by some of his family members. There are Facebook pictures showing that. He was still in jail. He was still not in jail. Still had his driver's license. Still driving down the street. It is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable that we allow these drunks out on the road after they've killed somebody. It's no wonder they don't take anything seriously. There are too many ways to skirt the law, too many enablers they have in their families. Too many enablers. Unfortunately, I have found that parents, loved ones, will consider this an accident and their child didn't mean to do it. Folks, he meant to do it. Maybe he didn't set out and say, I'm going to kill somebody today. But he went to that first bar for a football party of some sort and drank for about 3 hours. And then went to another place and drank. And evidently he didn't eat because then he stopped at another place to get a hamburger. And then he put his foot to the pedal and traveled down a straight road, 11 miles, and killed my son. I am the victim and the squeaky wheel. I am sure he has been able to get out of a lot of trouble because of overworked probation officers, and the criminal justice system thinks that this man who killed my son is not dangerous. I'd hate to see him in an alley. I'd hate to see him in an alley because he has been arrested for battering somebody. He took a baseball bat after somebody. He's been in anger management. Not dangerous? How many things do you have to do not to be dangerous? But that's our law. Nothing seems to be fair when it comes to justice for us. But for our children, we need to fight. We need to stand up. There must be a connection between what we believe and the actual situation. In an ideal world, every legal case would receive the same level of attention as depicted on television shows. But reality tells a different story. To ensure justice is served, your voice must be loud and clear. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the system, our children's cases are often reduced to mere case numbers. This is where knowing victims' rights is vital to getting justice for your child. You just can't go and start screaming and yelling and whatever people do. That's not going to help. You have to understand what's happening to me and be there and say, hey, I am the mother. I want to know what's happening. I am the father. I want to know what's happening and follow through. So your child is not just a case number. Please share your stories and help other victims going through this horrible nightmare, the worst time in their lives. Together, we can help each other through this legal system and get justice for our loved ones. Remember, we are stronger together. Now let's keep this conversation going. For Kenley, my son, Marshall, and every soul taken too soon. Our journey towards justice and healing continues, and it will for the rest of our lives. We have a life sentence, but we have to keep control. Again, I want to say, I am not an attorney, but the proud mother of Dr. Kenley Gene Raney, who was killed by a drunk on January 25th, 2019. Thank you.